Namaskar everybody and welcome to the Gita Satsang. By God's grace, we are resuming this Satsang after so many days, after so many months actually, because first the Dhanurmasa extended with the Ramayana Satsanga and then later I had taken a small break. So now by God's grace and Acharya Anugraha, hopefully we will be able to continue this Satsang. So let us start. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have assembled for this Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let's chant the shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatakleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Kullavindaya Tapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimad-Venkatanatharyam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Yo Nityamachyutapadaambujayugma Rugma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadguror Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye. So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us start our shloka for today. So in the previous satsang where we had stopped, we were taking the verses, the shlokas in the 5th chapter. So we had stopped at shloka number 23. Today we will take up shloka 24. So here in this chapter, Lord has been explaining, Sri Krishna has been explaining to Arjuna about what are the different qualities of a karma yogi, what is the stages through which a karma yogi goes ahead, and so on. So today in the 24th shloka, we will see what further explanation he gives. So in this shloka, he says, Yontas sukhontara ramastatan, Yontas sukhontara ramastathantar jyotirevayah sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhutodhigacchati. Those who are happy within themselves, who enjoy the delight of the Brahman, the Atma within, those who are illumined, who are lighted up by the inner light, such yogis are united with the Atma and they get liberated from material existence. So what happens is, whenever we have sense objects and sense organs which are there, the relationship between them is that invariably these senses come into contact with the sense objects. The senses and the sense objects get connected. And when this happens, our mind, the human mind, is such that we get pleasure from these contacts. So the eyes see something, the ears hear something, and like that, we get pleasure through these sense objects. In the previous shloka, Lord Krishna had explained the different stages of Karma Yoga. So in the 20th shloka, he talked about how a Karma Yogi who is in the first stage, okay, this is a person who is different from someone who is not at all doing any kind of a spiritual practice. So in that first stage, that kind of a person who is in the first stage, he remains unaffected by things which are happening around him, whether they are to his liking or not to his liking. Someone who is still caught up in worldly things, someone who has not turned to yoga, to karma yoga, or to any form of spiritual practice, that person is constantly affected by whatever happens around him. Something good happens, we feel happy. Something bad happens, we feel unhappy. And what is this, our concept of good and bad? It is whatever is anukula to me, whatever is pleasant for me, whatever is pleasant to me gives me happiness. And if something happens against my wishes, then that gives me unhappiness. I become sad by that, or I may get angry by that. But once somebody starts doing karma yoga, then in the very initial stages, slowly that person starts to change. And as the effect of the vasanas, as the effect of the karmas of the past janmas starts going away little by little, this person learns to stay unaffected by things which happen around him, whether they are to our liking or not to our liking. We learn to stay unaffected by that. In this 21st shloka, Lord Krishna explained the second stage of Karma Yoga, that such a person is able to not only stay unaffected by external objects, but also is able to concentrate on the Atma within himself. So, first stage was you don't get affected by what happens around you, but you are not yet, able to concentrate on your Atma. Second stage, not only you avoid external things, but you are starting to learn, you are able to concentrate on the Jivatma within yourself. The further stage after this was explained in the 22nd shloka, where the Lord said that a person who is in this stage of Karma Yoga, the third stage of Karma Yoga, realizes that whatever we think in this world is giving us joy is actually the source of our misery. It is actually the source of sadness. And I think in the previous satsang, when we talked about this, we did discuss how many times we think that certain things in this world are sources of joy. We think that we are happy because of this. Like, suppose there is somebody who is, having a good education, and they feel that, okay, because of that education, they are, having a good chance in this world of success. So they will be happy that they are well educated. But if they find that when they go to many interviews and they are not getting a good job and people are telling that you are overqualified, that same education which they felt joy from now becomes a cause for their trouble. Similarly, if somebody has a good job, then you think, okay, you think you are happy because of the job, and you're very, initially you will be very happy about that. But then you will find that the boss is asking you to stay till late to work more, or you will find that on weekends also you're burdened with work. Now, what happens? That same joy, that same job which gave you joy, now becomes the source of your sadness or trouble. Like this, realizing this is not a easy realization to come. Only like other people like you and me, we may realize very superficially, but we again get lost. Something again comes up in our life, we'll again get fooled by that, and we'll flow with that joy and sorrow just like that. But the karma yogi who is in this advanced third stage, he gets the correct recognition, and at all times he never gets affected by anything, because he has come to realize that I'm thinking these particular things are giving me joy in this world, but actually those are only the cause of my sadness, of my misery. Where does the karma yogi go next? Further from this, what happens? The 23rd shloka had explained that to us, that once you realize that nothing in this world is actually giving you joy, then what happens is whatever you want to get, whatever joy you want to get by experiencing these objects, that goes away, that desire goes away. So such a person will conquer lust. Lust is any kind of a desire which they have. They will conquer those desires. Now, the minute desire gets conquered, what happens? Anger also goes away, because always in our life, anger or krodha comes when desire or kama is not fulfilled. In any case that you may take, any type of desire, if you are able to experience that desire, then two things can happen. Then what can happen? When you get the desire fulfilled, you feel happy. But gradually that kama and the fulfillment of that kama will lead you also to lobha. You'll feel greedy. You will want to enjoy more and more of that. Suppose that kama is not fulfilled, that desire is not fulfilled, it will lead to irritation and anger. So, as long as we have desires, we are going to have that anger which is coming from that. But if there is a person who is able to conquer that desire, because you realize that nothing in this world can give me any joy, whatever I think is giving me joy is actually source of misery. If I realize that, then such a person is able to conquer lust. So when they win over the lust, naturally they also have a victory over anger. And because of this, that reckless behavior, that behaving without thinking, that impulsive kind of behavior, all of it goes away before that person gives up this body. So when he's still alive, he will realize that all this is of no use, things in this world are of no use, and he will be able to get that understanding before he departs from this world. So until here, we had described in the 23rd shloka. Now, in this 24th shloka, what Krishna is telling is he's talking about the fifth stage of Karma Yoga. Who is this kind of Karma Yogi? What is that next fifth stage that he has? So, here, to understand this point, we can also take the example of one of the uh, thoughts which is expressed by Nammalvar in his Tiruvaimozhi Pashuram. So this is very famous in the among the Divya Prabandhas of the Alvars. In Tamil it says, Unnum sor, parugum neer, tinnum vettalai, ellam kannan. So whatever food I am eating, the Alvar is expressing this towards the Lord. He says, whatever food I am taking, I am consuming in order to sustain my body. Whatever water I am drinking to nourish me by quenching that thirst. And whatever I'm eating for my pleasure, the betel leaves that I'm consuming for my pleasure, for me, all that is Krishna. So to understand this, our acharyas say that these three things, the food we eat, the water we drink, and the betel leaves, all these, what do they represent? We eat food because we are having these senses and we want to fill our stomach. So that part is called as dharakam, the food you are eating, the nourishment that you are getting from your food to sustain yourself. That is dharakam. What is the role of water? It quenches our thirst and it nourishes us. It keeps us alive. Many times, even if people don't have food, if they only have water, also they can live for many long days. So that water is nourishment. That is called poshakam. And what we are having for our enjoyment. We don't always eat food only for nutrition. We only don't drink water for quenching our thirst. There are a lot of things which we don't actually require, but we consume those. For what? For pleasure. And that is represented by betel leaves, by whatever we are eating this betel leaf with that areca nut and other things at the end of the meal. That is considered as a source of pleasure. So there are three things that we need in this world. We need food to sustain ourselves, we need water to nourish us, and we need something for enjoyment. These are things which most people have. Now, for Alvar, what is his state? What is his stage of his life, of his sadhana? That everything for him is Krishna only. He does not want food separately to sustain himself. He does not want water separately. He does not need anything for enjoyment. For him, all the nourishment, all the sustenance, all the enjoyment and pleasure, everything is Krishna only. For people in this world like us, we have all different objects for meeting these three requirements. But for the Alvar, these all requirements are met only through the Lord. So, like that, for somebody who is in this higher stage, the fifth stage of Karma Yoga described in this shloka, the Atma is itself the object which is giving and fulfilling all these requirements. So, if you look at the meaning that we talked about, these are the yogis, these Karma Yogis, they are happy within themselves. How is it that they are happy within themselves? Because they are enjoying the delight of the Atma who is within. And how is that they can enjoy that Atma who is illuminated, that Atma who is shown up as very bright by the inner light? So when they have enjoyment coming from the Atma itself, there is no hankering for joy and delight and happiness to come from the outside world. So these are the highest level of yogis that we have seen so far. We talked about four levels of yogis. First, we said they don't get affected by outside things. Second, we said they are able to concentrate on the Atma, but only concentration is there. Still, they are not getting enjoyment from that Atma. Third stage, they realize that everything in this world which is giving joy is actually source for sadness. Fourth stage, they are able to conquer lust and anger, and they come to a good state of mind which is unaffected by other things. And in the fifth stage, which is described in this shloka, they are able to not just concentrate on the Atma, but they are going to get all their joy, all their enjoyment, all the happiness that they want is coming by that process of concentrating on the Atma. The Atma only is the object being enjoyed. The Atma is only the place where the enjoyment is taking place, and the Atma is only the means of enjoyment. To understand this, let us take the example of, let us say, suppose I go out into a garden and there are flowers which have bloomed there and they are giving out, there are a lot of jasmine flowers and they are giving off a lot of fragrance, right? So what is the object which is giving enjoyment? The jasmine flower. What is the place of enjoyment? It is that garden into which I have gone. And what is the means of enjoyment? My ability to smell that fragrance, the nose, that is my means. But for people, so there you have things in the external world which are required. But for the karma yogi who is in this fifth stage of karma yoga, the atma only is everything. The object being enjoyed is the atma. The enjoyment is taking place within the atma, and the means by which the enjoyment is taking place is also through the atma only. So everything is the jivatma. So such a karma yogi is able to attain Atma Sukham. Atma Sukham means getting Sukha from the Atma himself. And this, because the Atma is Nitya, getting the Sukha from that Atma is also Nitya. External objects in this world keep changing. They have Vikara, they undergo change, they get distorted, they will increase, they will decrease. But the Atma's Swarupa never changes. So somebody who is able to get Sukha, is able to get joy and pleasure from the Atma, from being immersed in the Atma, is constantly in the stage of Atma Sukha. So we can understand that this is totally opposite to the state of one who is lost in Indriya Sukha. Somebody who is lost in sense pleasure, that pleasure will come to an end someday. That pleasure will itself turn into a cause for sorrow one day. But somebody who is only concentrating on the Atma and getting all their joy from the Atma, that is the stage of the higher level of Karma Yogi. So if we think like this about the Lord, like how Alvar thought, we must be very sure the Lord also will think like this only about us. In many stories of the Alvars, it is told how when the Alvar was pining for the Lord also was pining for the Alvar. The Alvar wanted to attain the Lord. The Lord also wanted equally badly or even more badly to attain the Alvar. We think that, we are the ones who are making efforts to reach to God, and we think that okay, we are doing this because we have understood that this is the purpose of our life and we have to go get moksha. That is the very purpose, and we are doing this. We are like, we means not people like you us, but those who are in the higher stages of spiritual progress. For those people, what happens, they are constantly hankering for God, they want to reach God, and we think, oh, that's such a great state that they are so mad about God. But it is told in the shastra that not that these people alone are hankering for God. God has been waiting from so many janmas. He's been waiting for so long that when will this fellow turn towards me? When will this Jivatma come back to me? Through all the janmas that Jivatma has gone through, the Lord has also, in fact, been terribly waiting with so much of hope, with so much of desire that this Jivatma has to come back to me. So if we are going to give even one bit of our thing to God, if we are able to get to the stage like Alvar, where we think of the Lord always, that we say that everything in this world for me is Krishna only. What food I'm eating, what water I'm having, what enjoyment I have, I'm going to get all of that from the Lord only. The Lord is everything for me. If we get to that stage, then the Lord also will have a similar kind of pining for us. And when He has that feeling towards us, then He will bless us. And by His blessing, we will be able to attain Him. We don't get moksha because of our effort. Understanding that is the most important step. We don't get moksha because we are putting effort. We get moksha because the Lord graces us with it. And how will we make Him to grace us with that? By doing whatever He has told, by doing that which pleases Him. And like Alvar, if we are constantly having only one desire in our mind to attain the Lord, then the Lord will make it happen for us. Just like we want the Lord also wants us. So now, further, in the 25th shloka, Krishna explains one more stage of the Karma Yogi, the sixth and the last stage of the Karma Yogi. So in this 25th shloka, he says Labante brahma nirvanam rishayah kshina kalmashaha chinnadvaidhayatatmanaha sarvabhuta hite rataha. Those holy persons whose sins have been purged, whose sins have been destroyed completely, and those whose doubts are totally removed, annihilated, those whose minds are disciplined, and those who are devoted to the welfare of all beings. Such persons attain Atma Sukha and they get liberated from material existence. So, this is the final stage of Karma Yoga, the final stage of Atma Sakshatkara. So, what is different here? All these other things we have talked about in the previous stages also. That somebody whose karmas are got rid of, somebody whose vasanas are over, somebody whose papas have been destroyed. They have no doubts in their mind. Their mind is completely single-mindedly focused and disciplined on the Lord, on the Atma. All this has been told before. What is the new point which is introduced here? Those people who are devoted to the welfare of all. Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Those who are constantly thinking about how to devote their lives to the welfare of all beings. Such people attain Atma Sukha. So that is naturally what happens. Once we stop hankering for things in this world, once we have nothing called my selfish pleasure, once I have no desire for anything for my joy and my happiness, I am ready to accept everything as coming from God. And in fact, I say that everything for me in this world, it is God only. He is only the cause for all my joys. So when I get to that stage, when there is no vested interest of mine in everything, when everything else is lost, then the only thing which should remain in such a karma yogi's mind, because he is a karma yogi, he is someone who is going to do some action. He's not going to give up the action, but he's going to do actions without any desire for his own pleasure. He's going to do actions by being situated always in the Atman. He's always going to get joy from the Atma within him. So, such a person, what he will do action for? He doesn't want anything for himself. But what is it that he will want then? He will want, without any selfish agenda of his own, he will want good for all beings around him. He will wish good and he will try to do good for everybody around him. So, this is the quality, the most supreme stage, the final stage of Karma Yoga. How is a Karma Yogi in this last stage? That he only wishes good for everybody. And when somebody has like this kind of an attitude, when they have reached this stage where they don't want anything for themselves, only pure goodwill for everybody else, able to get joy always from experience of the Atma within, such a person will get liberated from this life. Such a person is given moksha. So these are all the things that Krishna is telling to Arjuna and trying to explain to him that this is what a karma yogi is like. This is what is the true nature of somebody who is involved in karma yoga. Now we remember that how this entire thing has started. In the first chapter, we saw how Arjuna was trying to say that I don't want to fight against all these people. They are all my own relatives. And he wanted to run away. Then Krishna tried to tell him that how should be his attitude. That being a Kshatriya, it is your dharma to fight. You cannot take the path of Jnana Yoga. That is alien to you. You are a Kshatriya and therefore you must take the path of karma, of doing action. Then how to do action? You explain to him without attachment, without feeling that I am doing, without thinking, having desire for a particular outcome, except the thought that the Lord is getting this done through me. The Lord is the doer. I am only the instrument. And whatever happens by fighting in this Dharma Yuddha, even if I die, I will get moksha because this is the job of the Lord and I'm participating in this mission of the Lord. So that was what Krishna was explaining to Arjuna. And then he went into details trying to show Arjuna that how Jnana Yoga is not appropriate for him, but Karma Yoga is appropriate. So in this chapter, Krishna has been explaining what are the different things about Karma Yoga. He has been praising the features praising the qualities of somebody who does karma yoga. Now, in the last few shlokas, there are 4 more shlokas to go. So, in those shlokas, Krishna will also talk a little bit about giving up karma, or what, uh, how this person who is a karma yogi should actually be doing his actions. So, we will see that part in the next satsang. And for today, we will stop with this. But this point, that we should be sarvabhuta hiterataha, we should have desire for welfare of everybody. That is very important for us to remember. If we look at any of the great personalities who have been in our country, if we look at all the great acharyas, if we look at all the great bhaktas also who have been there, we see that always the quality which sets them apart is their karuna, is their compassion for everybody who is in trouble. They rush to give help and support to those who are there. Many times, people say that, okay, in other religions, it is very openly done that, they are doing charity work, or they are doing some kind of help. But people say that, what about Hindus? In our Sanatan Dharma also, we have lot of things. If you look at any temple, right, whenever any function is conducted there, whenever any utsava is there, it's just that we don't, do a big publicity of it. But you look at any utsava, what is done whenever any prasada is prepared to the Lord, it is given to people. That very simple thing, even that's one simple thing, that every day, day in and day out, so many temples all over are doing annadana, isn't it? Similarly, there are so many organizations, there are so many spiritual institutions, there are so many of our mathas who are running educational institutions, who are running hospitals, who are involved in so many social welfare activities. Why are they doing all this? Okay, there is no need for these mathas to get involved with political things. That is not told anywhere. But it is definitely told that a person who is in spirituality should be devoted to welfare of all beings. So, in keeping with that, if you observe, almost all the matas that we know of, every single institution is involved with so many activities which are for social upliftment. If they were only thinking about their own spiritual marga and spiritual practice and all that, then there was no need for them to do all this. But because they are following the path of karma yoga, yes, there may be differences in the marga that they are taking. There may be, like some people who are more focused on a particular deity or on a particular form of worship. All that may be there. But basically, the idea is that everybody is performing karma. Everybody is in this world, living in this world, and still doing their sadhana, and also following the path of karma yoga. So they do undertake activities which are for the welfare of all beings. And to know whether we are really progressing in our sadhana, we need to understand that, has my ability to feel sympathy for other people, has it changed? Has it become more? Am I able to think of helping other people? Of course, there is also the question of whom you are helping, how you are helping, why you are helping. There may be situations when wanting the welfare of somebody is not the right thing to do. Those situations are different. Okay, we are now still in the, we have just come out of this whole mental thing that our country went through, the whole conflict that was there with our rogue neighboring country, the terrorism attack and all those things. So right now, if we say that, okay, welfare of everybody, are we doing welfare to them? We can say indirectly, maybe in a way we are doing it, because we are trying to put an end to this, problem of terrorism. Directly, if we look at it, if we say that we have gone into a fight with somebody, it may not appear like welfare to us. But even in doing that, when you try to assert the power of dharma, when you try to do that which is right, even if it seems like somebody is, on the superficial level, when you look at it, it looks as though you are harming people. But in reality, the deeper objective that you are trying to attain, that is ultimately welfare only. So let us understand that being in this stage of wanting welfare for everybody around us, that is the highest stage of the karma yogi. Let us aspire to reach that stage. Let us aspire. Of course, to aspire to reach to that stage is a very big dream. We must reach first to the initial stage where we are not affected by things around us. Anyway, by God's grace, by the Acharya's anugraha, by Guru's kripa, we will definitely get there at some point of time. So let us pray that we are blessed with the ability to do our sadhana in this manner. Let us offer Kritagnyata at the lotus feet of Krishna and Guru, who inspired us to take up the study of the Bhagavad Gita, who are always guiding us by, giving us all these scriptures. And let us pray that their blessings will be on us and we will be able to progress further in our sadhana. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And we will meet again next Friday. From now onwards, every Friday, we will have the satsang. So, Friday, 6:30, we will meet every time. Thank you very much. And we will meet again next Friday. Namaskar.